Ruslan.
Recently, I've been having the conversation with different single friends of mine on if I've been too hard on single people. If you guys don't know, I've been married for 15 years. I've been with the same woman for 19 years. And I don't really know what it's like to date in this climate. And so I always enjoy hearing from folks that are in a different season of life, if you will. And today, I brought my friend along who's going to be giving me some of his perspective of the realities of dating with things like Tinder and other apps where people can meet, with OnlyFans models running rampant with a lot of chameleons. He's going to be giving me his perspective. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Zuby in the house.
Yo, what's up? What's up?
Thanks for being here, man. So we were having this conversation at lunch, and we were talking about the red pill in particular, which I'm sure we can circle back around. And you push back a little bit, and you're like, hey, man, like, to be fair though, bro, you don't know what it's like to date in this climate. Like, I understand a lot of you guys, like, you've been conservatives, you've been married. I think we're called trad cons. Mm-hmm. You've been married for a long time. You met your girl in high school, right after high school, and all that stuff is great. But you don't understand what it's like to date as a Christian in this climate.
Yeah.
Unpack some of that for me. Just talk about just dating in this climate as a Christian man, and then we can get into some of the other challenges that you face.
Okay, well, first things first, I'm off the market.
Like, as of a week ago. Okay, stop acting like you've been in a committed relationship for a year.
Hey, I know.
You got to put that out there in case she's watching. Hey, he's not single, ladies, but I think this is a relevant conversation.
Yeah, not to confuse anything. Wow, yeah. So just coming back to the beginning is that stuff has really changed.
Yeah.
Socially, culturally, and technologically. And I think the third one is the one that tends to be the most overlooked in terms of the impact that it's actually having on young men and women, but honestly, men and women of all ages who are still out there in the dating market, who are single, who are looking for whatever it is that they're looking for. Uh-huh. People often forget that prior to when was the first iPhone? 2006, 2007?
2007, I
right?
think. Yeah.
It's only been since about, let's say 2010, since the combination of smartphones and social media has been ubiquitous, right? When it's just been the norm to have both of these things and to be on.
We remember the world before smartphones.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you have to remember that even when you're talking to people just 10 years younger than you, when they were in school and whatever, like, they had smartphones, they had Instagram, they had access to all this stuff. And then on top, you had the dating apps. And like, if you met your boyfriend or girlfriend or wife or husband on online dating or even on the internet a decade plus ago, like, that was weird. Now it's probably at least half of relationships
more common
are starting that way. But what it's done essentially is it has just multiplied by many orders of magnitude how many options or perceived options are available.
Sure.
So if you were, let's talk about it from, gender specifically, right? If you were a pretty girl in the past, I'm not even saying way back in 1950, but even in the 1980s, 1990s, early 2000s, your pool of suitors is going to be the guys and men around you.
Sure.
Right? The guys at your school or your college or in your neighborhood, in your town, in your city at most. Now you can be a pretty girl and you can literally have hundreds of thousands to millions of men all across the entire world who are at least sexually interested in you.
Sure.
This doesn't mean they want to date or marry you.
Sure.
Right? But they're interested in something.
Yep.
What does that do to the ego, right? What does that do to the ego? What does that do to someone's self-perception or what they think that they deserve? This is why I think with guys like Kevin Samuels and whatever, he had his almost like the delusion, in Fresh Offense, I think they have their delusion calculator, right? Because every woman is saying, I want a man with this, this, and this, and this.
Yes.
And they think, oh, wow, that's accessible because, they're seeing it online and they're seeing this and they're seeing that. So it creates a very false perception of both reality and of yourself. And then from the male perspective, there's an element of that, but it's different, right? Because as an average guy, even as a decent looking guy, unless you've got some special talent or fame or something that's going to get you like a lot of followers, it's not that lopsided, but you have the fact that you are still seeing this infinite, to be a bit crude, catalog of women, right? If someone's ever used Tinder or some of these other apps, you're literally swiping through human beings like a catalog, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's like
bro.
a catalog, right? There's no you've never spoken to them.
Wow.
You don't know anything about their personality, their values. What it's purely looks. Looks have always been, the first thing that certainly men will notice, but that's all it is, right? So you're just there, and the abundance, it's literally infinite, right? You're on Instagram, it's infinite. You see one girl, oh my gosh, like this girl's beautiful. You swipe, oh, she's even more beautiful. Oh, well, look at this one. Look at that one.
Sounds like you've done this yourself.
Never, Ruslan, never.
Okay. I don't listen because this is so foreign to me. All of this is so foreign to me. I don't even know what these apps look like.
You know what Instagram looks like.
I know what Instagram looks like, but you're talking about like Tinder and stuff.
Yeah, well, Tinder is, it's literally just images that pop up, and someone swipes left,
and then they're trying to see
left is a no, right is a yes.
And so if you
both
say
people
yes,
swipe right,
and then they swipe
then
right while
message.
they're going through yours, then you can message. Okay.
And that's the only one. I don't even know what the other ones look like, but I think it's very similar.
Okay.
Right. And this is even different from the original online dating, where like a profile. It's more like a Facebook profile, interest, whatever. This is just people are literally sitting there. Just going. Another thing that's happened is that and the people in the so-called red pill world or manosphere talk about this a lot, which is the fact that so many young women especially are all chasing after the same 5 to 10% of men, right? The reality of the world is that most men find most young women attractive, whereas most young women find most men unattractive, right? It's very lopsided. There's biological reasons for this. It makes sense if someone wants to go deep on it. But this creates this massive skew, especially when people are relying on this online stuff, where you have a large segment of men who are really not getting much attention at all and are struggling to get dates and are unable to even think that they'll be able to get a girlfriend, let alone a wife, let alone this. You add on top all the economic and financial hardship and so on. So you have a large increasing pool of men who are just like, hey, like, there's nothing out there for me. Whereas in the past, it was just like, cool, get your education, get a good job, be a decent person, take a shower, and you can attract a mate, you can find a nice woman to settle with and whatever. Right. And then you've also then on the opposite end, if you want, the term high value man has become like quite cringeworthy.
Let's not go to high value man
okay.
Because I want to kind of save some of that. Sure. But I think what you're saying is valid. And we were talking about this, and I just had this conversation with a family member of mine of like, hey, look, as a woman, most women, as long as you have hygiene, you finish puberty, and if you're beautiful, you're beautiful. Like nothing else has to happen.
Yes.
Right? And you could put pictures on Instagram. You can go out in public. Guys may or may not approach you. With men, it's different.
Yes.
If you finish puberty as a man, you still have to develop and build yourself up to be someone that is deemed attractive, right? Putting on muscle, right? Working on your physique, developing competency and different skills, learning how to earn and provide, which all of these different things are just barometers for competency.
Yeah.
I think hopefully people know that is the difference. And so to your point, yes, women are going to have more dudes that are going to slide into their DMs.
Yes.
Men are going to have less women slide into their DMs unless they've already been working on themselves and creating and chiseling themselves into who they should become, right?
Yeah.
My question would be, shouldn't we then just be instructing men to become more, like tipping the scales in their favor, to develop the competence, to develop the physique, and to become the type of person that could provide, protect, and lead a home?
Absolutely. And that's why the red pill world has become so popular. It's why it's exploded and popular. By the way, for people who are just coming across that term now, this community has existed.
They've been around forever.
Over 2 decades. Right. Yeah. It's on the internet. It's been around for over 2 decades. Started with, public forums, and now, you've got YouTubers and podcasters and so on. It's been redefined a little bit. It's kind of had a new surge in popularity and a bit of a change in meaning with
But let me rephrase that. But I think sometimes what the red pill does is then they backdoor a victim mentality instead of just giving the prescriptions that men need.
I think a lot of stuff can get backdoored. Right. But I think, yeah, absolutely, the message of men to three things you'll hear a lot in manosphere circles is money, muscles, game.
Yep.
Right. Which is that's solid, right? Get your money in order.
Yep.
Right. With that comes being ambitious, developing your skills, getting your education, working hard, all the stuff, I preach, you preach. It's important. Right. If you're going to have a family and you want to attract a woman, you need an ability to be competent and to provide. Right. Muscle. Hey,
put some muscle on. You can't look like a scrawny kid your whole life.
Get your fitness in order, right? Don't be, obese. Be a healthy body weight. Build up your muscles to a good degree. Have a lower level of body fat. Make yourself physically attractive. With that, you can also add, dressing well, grooming, hygiene, that kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
And then game. Game has a negative connotation to some people, but really what it is social calibration and social skills, right? Being good at communicating, developing your sense of humor. Game doesn't just apply to like macking on women. It's like, cool, that guy's good at communicating.
He's
right?
persuasive.
He's persuasive, right? You can lead, you can do all that. So that prescription is solid.
Yes.
Right? I think where a lot of people would then would take issue with it is some of the things that then go beyond that.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if it's coming from a prescription. But then there are also people who would say, look, we're just trying to understand the situation and we're trying not to prescribe anything. We're just to explain what is going on with these gender dynamics and so on. But I think coming back to the original question, the point is that in the past 15 years, let alone 20, let alone 30 years, the social and cultural and technological environment, the teenagers and people in their early, let's say from teenagers to mid 30s, the environment that they are in when it comes to dating and relationships and everything like that, it is vastly different. If you talk to a lot of young teenagers or people in their 20s, there's very little exclusivity, right? Men and women are just dating for the sake of dating, for the sake of fun, not knowing you might have a woman who's dating 5 guys at once, a guy who's dating 7 girls at once. None of them are really like talking about exclusivity or trying to see if their values align for a potential marriage or this or that. It's very directionless. It's very directionless. And in the absence of some type of traditional framing or religious framing or anything like that, it can often stay like that for many, many decades. And you have many people who are promoting and pushing that type of lifestyle all over the spectrum. So it's a strange situation.
So my solution, which is much like Kevin Samuels's solution, one of the few times I would hear him talk about marriage is in the confines of people staying married who they have kids with, and then in the confines of an Ikea marriage. Now, he also said a bunch of stuff I disagreed with, like high value men cheat and they should. That's a direct quote. I didn't make that up. You guys
that was a bad one. I wish you didn't say
that. But this idea of building an Ikea marriage, right? Somebody said, how can somebody get married young if they have to develop themselves, right? And I would say, well, I told you, I'm not exaggerating. This is not exaggerating. I know about 100 couples who all got married in their early to mid 20s, who built lives together before they had the money, the muscles, and the game. They built these amazing lives together. The way you assemble IKEA furniture, it don't come assembled. Nobody delivers. You got to get it in a box and you got to assemble it. It's the same way. It takes a little bit more work, but there's nothing like building something together, right? So I think the frustrating part is like, and I don't know if the red pill intentionally omits the IKEA marriage.
Okay.
Let me be very specific. The Christian IKEA marriage. I don't know if it intentionally omits this, or if it's just disingenuously ignorant that a lot of folks who are going to have lower body counts, higher values, be women that are more willing to submit to men that can lead, are going to be in church, bro. You know what I mean? And so it's like, if I personally know 100 couples, 100, Zuby, 100, that's 200 people that love Jesus, were virgins or very low body counts, got married in their early 20s, started families, building lives, have babies, and they're thriving and they're flourishing. That's just within this proximity. To me, that would imply 2 things. Selection bias on my part, because I'm in a different ecosystem of different types of people who have different family dynamics and different values, and selection bias on the part of the red pill. Is that a reasonable conclusion?
I think it's true. I think there's more to it than that. So I think from a red pill analysis of things, I think the red pill is intentionally secular.
Sure.
Right? Not meaning that if that it's not for someone who has religious faith or anything, but the way they frame things and analyze things, it's intentionally not relying on any sort of scripture or
I get that.
Christian perspective,
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And then I think there are two things that are often not discussed. I've had so many discussions even with my own Twitter followers about this whole situation, right? People are like, oh, I married my high school sweetheart and this and this. And I think two things are massively missing, and this is perhaps a blind spot from the more traditional conservative mindset beyond the changes that I already mentioned. The first is that those young people have to already know that that's what they want. There are most people in their late teens, early 20s, in this here and now. It used to be different many years ago, and is still different in some parts of the world. They're not even sure at that point that they want to get married and they want to have a family, right?
In terms of Zoomers maybe being a little different.
Yeah, this is what I mean. So I'm sure if you polled the average 18-year-olds in the US and you were like, do you want to get married? Do you want to have a family? Whatever, do you want to make that commitment? Like for some, it's not on their radar. Right, that's something that they're going to start thinking about maybe in 10 years' time. So the idea, like what you are prescribing, and these 100,
I'm prescribing Jesus and church.
Yeah, and that's
very clear.
Yeah, as you should, right? You're a Christian, right? So for all these 100 couples, I would assume that they intentionally, that is what they wanted. That's what they were seeking after from a young age.
Sure.
That's what they knew that they wanted. So the majority of them, they're in that environment, they're surrounded by that and so on. A lot of people, even if they have that realization of, hey, actually, I want to get married, I want to have a family, they don't realize that until later. Even I myself went through a short phase, probably no more than a year, of like, oh, maybe it would be cool to just be like a bachelor for life, and I can just keep my money and I don't need to worry about this and this and this. And then I got to a point where I was like, no, that's stupid, right? Like, well, that's fruitless, right?
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, I think a lot of men won't get there until their late 20s, early 30s. And that says a lot
in terms of their mindset.
In terms about their mindset, right? And even the women, right? Even the women, you talk to young women and they're like, a man is not in the top 5 things they're looking for.
Yeah.
Right? Career, education, having fun, their freedom, their this, their that. Like it's not until they get to 30 plus, they're not thinking like, oh, I'm looking for a husband, right? Some of them are even put off by the idea. So there's that. And then also these things are linked together. There's also the fact that, and I there are people who, I think they very much mean well, but I think they completely miss out on the fact that, hey, not everyone meets the person they want to marry when they're 18. Right? Like I know people who, they married their 16-year-old sweetheart or whatever, and they've been married for 40 years. And I think that's beautiful. I think that's amazing. That's awesome. But I'm like, not every 16-year-old meets like the woman or the man they should marry.
Yeah. Which I'm not saying they will. I'm not saying they will.
What I'm saying is that for that Ikea marriage to happen early, you do have to meet a person. Let me not say the person. You have to meet a person where, cool, that's both what you want. You've both got your head screwed on enough to know this is the commitment we want to make. And I'm confident enough that this person on both sides is the right individual. And I know people who literally, like, they literally met the person they're going to marry at 12. Other people, they met them at 32. Other people, they met them at 22, at any point. And I also think, and again, people have different views on this one, but I'm of the view that it's better to, I think oftentimes from the conservative perspective, people push getting married young, sometimes more than getting married right.
Sure, that's fair too.
And you see the results of that, right? There are a lot of people who do get married young, sadly, and before they're 30, they've already had a divorce. And
this is the average age, by the way. The national average age for marriage today in the United States is 27 years old for women and 29 years old for men. This is, of course, varies from state to state. Most people will marry between the ages of 25 and 30, which I think that's a fine age too.
Yeah, but look up the UK, because UK is several years older than that.
UK is older.
UK, they're both going to be, I think UK is like 34 and 30.
Let's see.
People get married younger in the US than they do in the UK and most of Europe.
31.
Yeah, 31. What is it for men and women, though? I think it's 34 for men in the UK.
Let's see. You said for men?
I think so. Yeah. I think for both men and women, it's over 33.
Average age of marriage, first-time marriage has risen by 8+ years, 31 for women, 34 for men. The proportion of women who have ever been married by the age of 30 just dropped below a half in 2002. It now stands at a third, having fallen from 9 and 10. So this is what I would say. I think what you're saying is reasonable. I think there is absolutely men should stay away from.
Oh yeah.
And there's women should stay away
100%.
from. Right? I think the tricky part to me is if we look out at a demographic of people and we find out that out of all these different tribes of people, these guys over here tend to be the most in shape and have the best BMI and the lowest body fat percentage. Wouldn't, if those folks over there are the leanest and have the best muscles and got the best body, and I aspire to build muscle, wouldn't I want to go over there and examine why are these people so successful?
Absolutely.
Right?
This is the point I was making earlier about Christians leading by example.
Leading by
people
example.
wanting to be like them.
Right. And so if we look at Christian marriage versus secular marriage, which, by the way, this entire notion that there's a 50% divorce rate is nonsense. It's it's between 35 and 40. That was a false statistic given based on when no-fault divorce laws passed and what they were projecting the divorce rate was. It never actually hit 50%, which is another red pill talking point, which is nonsense.
I think most people say 40 to 50.
Yeah, it's closer to 35.
Okay.
It's 35 to 40 in terms of folks that get divorced throughout their lifetime. And so if we and then the folks who get divorced are more likely to get divorced.
Yeah.
But then we look at Christian marriage and we find out that folks who go to church regularly and are, practicing their faith, taking their faith seriously, and those folks end up getting divorced at the lowest rates.
Yes.
If those folks have a slightly above average income, the whole divorce rate plummets.
Yep.
So most men are going to want kids. Most women are going to want kids. Who you have kids is the most important decision. Who you marry and who you have kids with, by far the most
100%.
decision you're making. So if we're seeing these folks over here who are creating healthy, stable families and healthy, stable environments, and they're staying married and they're flourishing, wouldn't we want to go and investigate and say, what is it about these Christians that are married for decades and decades at a time?
Yeah.
Instead of acting like they don't exist, which the red pill does.
Yeah. You know, one of the biggest flaws or omissions I see from a lot of red pill creators and people who speak on it is the lack of contextualization of statistics.
That's good.
Right?
Yeah.
Statistics are useful, but they can also be very misleading.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And there's no point, if you're using a statistic, you have to contextualize it, especially if you want to apply it to yourself. Right? So the average man can do 0 pull-ups.
That's crazy.
Right?
Is that true?
The average man can do 0 pull-ups.
The average man can't do any
No.
pull-ups?
0.
Gosh.
Right? Less than half of guys can do a pull-up. Okay? Most men can't do more than 10 push-ups, right? If you can do over 10 push-ups,
Bro, this is embarrassing.
it's terrible, dude. You have to remember, dude.
Is this real?
Over 70% of the population is overweight and obese, right? Right? Like, dude, look, walk around the US and like look at the average man, right? He's really not in shape at all. Most people can't even hold a squat position. Most people can't touch their toes, man. So, but as someone who trains, right? I don't care about the average.
Yeah.
The average is totally irrelevant to me because I've been working out for 20 years. So the fact that I'm not celebrating, hey, I did 1 pull-up, like I'm better than average. It's like, no, like I'm trying to knock out 30.
Yeah.
Right?
Is that your record, 30?
28.
28. I think I got to 24.
Yeah.
24, 25, but I was a little
Got
sloppy.
to 28 clean ones.
Come on. They weren't clean. My 25 weren't clean. But I can do 20 clean.
20, that's top 1%, man.
Yeah.
Top 1%. Good job. So if you are...
If you're in the 1%,
yes.
with fitness, that could transfer, that mentality can transfer to other areas.
Absolutely, right? And so, or if you're looking at marriage statistics, right, you have to remember when you're saying that there is let's say a 35 or 40% divorce rate, you have to consider that is including everything and everybody.
Sure.
Okay? If you are super Mr. Average Joe and you have no faith and no fitness and your money is average or below par and your morals and convictions and willpower, if you're just you're a sloppy individual. Right? If you're super sloppy, then okay, like that stat applies to you.
Yes.
If you have your stuff together, if you're there and you're earning a good salary and you're well educated and you've got like your stuff, then if you want to look at statistics, look at the statistics for your demographic.
Yeah, it's good.
You see what I mean?
That's good,
Right?
that's
Why are you looking at the total average ones
Yep.
if you're not, I think one of the biggest keys to self-awareness is knowing when you are the norm and knowing when you are the exception.
It's good.
We all have things that we are average, right? There's many things in the world that like I'm average.
Yep.
And then there's things where like I'm exceptional. Like I'm way, way, way above average in certain things.
Sure.
And so there's statistics that just don't apply to me.
Yeah.
Right? That 40% divorce statistic does not apply to someone like myself. It doesn't apply to someone like yourself.
Yeah, it's good.
Right? You're earning a good salary. You have religious faith.
Yeah.
You're picking well. You have to remember how many people pick, like people pick their husband, or there are people who pick their husband or wife very stupidly.
Come on.
There are people who get married and then they end up getting divorced because what? One of them wants kids, the other one doesn't. Bruh, how do you not?
Yeah. How do you not know that?
You didn't have the
How
conversation.
do you not know that?
You didn't have a conversation. Not even like, how many kids do you want? You didn't even say, do you want kids?
Do you even want
you
kids?
wait until you've done this and you've tied the knot and you've gone through all this. And then you're like, okay, so and they're like, wait, oh, you want kids?
Yep.
Like, bruh, like people make really, really dumb decisions. People get drunk in Vegas.
Come on.
And so all this is falling into the statistics.
Pull up to the courthouse.
All of this is
Don't tell any of their loved ones.
All of this is happening. All this is included in the statistics. Also included is people who had their third, fourth, fifth, sixth marriage, right? So with these statistics, I think it's very good to know what they are, but you have to contextualize them.
Yes.
And I see this happening on so many issues. People are just kind of taking data and stats and throwing out numbers out there, but they're not contextualizing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
There are people who will not step foot in the USA because I think the US has about 4 to 5 times the homicide rate, say, of the UK. Okay? So there's people in the UK or in Canada or in Australia, like they look at the stat and they're like, I will not go to the USA or I will not go to Chicago.
Yeah.
Where is that happening?
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
The vast majority of the US is pretty darn safe.
Yep.
There are pockets. There are places, little spots in cities, especially if you're involved in gangs or some other stuff where, okay, like that place is dangerous, man.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you can't go to the whole place. Earlier this year, I was in Johannesburg. I was in Cape Town, right?
Yes.
South Africa has a reputation. Oh my gosh, you're going to Johannesburg? Like, so you're going to, I'm like, I'm not going to go to the sketchiest areas and be hanging around on there with a rollie on like at 2 a.m. Right? Because
this is wisdom.
That's dumb.
It's wisdom.
So my point is, with all these statistics, I think they get thrown out and they get repeated and they get parroted and sometimes they even get inflated, but no one is saying, oh, wait, hang on. Actually, if you earn over $100,000 a year, I think the divorce rate drops below 15%.
It's low.
Right?
The more over 200, it falls off a cliff.
Yeah. Okay. So say household earnings over 200,000. Don't quote me on this. It might be like under 10%.
Yeah.
And then you add the religious faith on top of that.
Yeah.
Or you add the other things on top, right? Like, so once you stack a couple of those things, if that is who you are, then don't be running with the, oh my gosh, it's a coin toss, because it's not for you. Right. And the fact that you are even thinking about it means that, okay, like you're gonna choose more selectively and so on. So
you're gonna be more careful.
Yeah. This is where I think, there's so much value in raising awareness of these things. I think it's very important for men in particular to know the potential downsides of some of these things. I think it's good to hear the horror stories, and it's good to hear about the mistakes people have made and the things people have done wrong. I think it's good to talk to people who have been through these things and be like, all right, like what would you have done differently or this or this? But don't only listen to the horror stories. Don't only listen to the people it went bad for, right? Talk to people who are in successful long marriages. Talk to people who have done this, who it's working for. Hey, how did you meet your spouse? How did you know that she was the one? How did you know this? Like ask for advice. My parents have been together almost 50 years, right? And so I'm blessed and I'm very fortunate that I'm in such a position. Yeah. So I'm like, cool. I want advice on some of this stuff. I have so many elders. I have people in my own family, so many friends, family friends who've literally been together decades and decades and decades and have very happy families. They're still madly in love and so on. And I'm like, cool. Like, hey, what's the secret? How have you done this? Like, and it's right there. So, and I think,
go ahead.
Last point on this. I think part of the problem as well is that people who are in long-term happy marriages and so on, they're not usually making YouTube videos and running podcasts and doing like they're just doing their thing. they're kind of
Or
quiet.
in my case, like I don't put my wife
You don't.
in
Yeah,
in public.
it's not so public, right? So people know you're married.
Yeah.
People know about this, but like they're not seeing it. And I understand the privacy angle, but I think I know for myself. Do you know the thing that motivates me most to want to get married and want to have kids? Is seeing other people, men in particular, who are dads and they're having a great time, and they got their kids and they got their wife and whatever, and I'm like, man, that's a flex. Like that's dope. You know, like I want that. Like seeing it, I think is extraordinarily powerful. And sadly, there are many people out there. The truth is, there are millions of people out there who are not they're not seeing it. Like you see it every day. You're in your church. You got your friends. You're seeing it all the time. But there are many people out there, both men and women, who they just don't see. It didn't work out for their parents. It didn't work out for their friends' parents. It didn't work out.
The need for inspiration.
You see what I mean?
Where is the Christian version of the Bugatti?
Wow. Yes.
Right. Right. Because I think more men want what you just described than they actually want the Bugatti.
Yeah,
the Bugatti's a symbol,
but you'll take the Bugatti if you don't.
But I think
first,
most of us want legacy. I think most of us want kids. Guys, thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate you. Hey, it would be amazing if you partner with us in our online community for as little as $5 a month. Get the after party of this entire stream and our daily podcast and access to our Discord, discount codes, so much more for $5 a month. Keep us independent, brand free, and never having to make goofy commercials like these.
Our friends at Genucel Skincare have exciting news to celebrate in 2023.
Using Manscaped during my showers after workout has given me much more confidence.
And that's where Mudwater comes in.
True Classic has got your back.
All thanks to the sponsor of today's video, SayMine.com.
Established Titles is your opportunity to earn the title of Laird or Lady. Subject to credit approval, rates range from 7.99% APR to 19.99% APR, included 0.50% auto pay discount.
If you don't want us to make ads with brands you don't care about, sign up for our online community for as little as $5 a month to keep us independent and ultimately answering to you as our boss. You get all sorts of benefits like daily replays of our after party streams, exclusive access to our Discord community, and early access to our podcast interviews, all starting for only $5 a month.
King Stream.
Las Vegas, join me, and some of you guys might be familiar with my boy Ruslan KD.
Las Vegas, join me for the Christian Influencers Convention happening July 26th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m.
We'll be doing a panel with some of the top influencers in the country, as well as a private, intimate meet and greet.
You can get tickets and more information by hitting the Eventbrite link below.
Don't miss this opportunity to come and hang out and spend some time with some of your favorite Christian influencers.
All in the beautiful city of Las Vegas. July 26th, I'll see you over there. Peace.
I'll see you there. What do you mean?
Ruslan.